Episode 4 of Asia is called Tangled Worlds, and it's about jungles and woodlands. Firstly, the name of the episode, Tangled Worlds, is perhaps the worst name for a natural history episode I've ever seen. But this episode opens up with tigers mainly. We get a lot of great shots of tigers in Nepal, and we see them mating, which isn't something you usually see. I feel like every time we see tigers, they're hunting, they're looking after their cubs. I think I must have seen tigers mating at some point over the years, but it doesn't really spring to mind. So it was interesting to see that, and it was interesting to see how many tigers there are in Nepal. There do seem to be a lot of them there, and we mainly follow this one family, the mother and the cubs. We see them hunting, we see them bathing, we see them kind of playing around, and the mother catches a fawn. It was interesting enough. I mean, I think it was one of those things where the shots were amazing, very good shots of the tigers, but what they were doing was just kind of alright. It wasn't really anything amazing. Beyond the mating, which was interesting. So yeah, I kind of was like, okay, it's cool seeing tigers, but it kind of felt a bit obligatory. And then we see greater one-horned rhinos. So they're an animal that we don't see very often. We see them in the background a lot, we don't really focus on them very often. I think this might be the first time we've ever focused on them in a series like this. Similar to the tigers, the shots were absolutely amazing, especially them in the water just bathing. However, again, I kind of felt like we were just seeing a lot of different stuff and nothing that was really that amazing. We saw them fighting, which was cool. The mating sequence was quite funny. It was two young rhinos. They obviously just don't know how to mate, so it was just kind of interesting watching the male attempt to shag the female and not really succeed. And again, the shots of them in the water are amazing. But again, I did come away from that sequence as well, kind of feeling like, yeah, it was okay. Then we see the purple frog. So the purple frog emerges during the rains. It only emerges once a year. It lives underground otherwise. And it's a very weird looking frog. I can't say there's any other frogs that really look like that. And we see this one female. She's got a male on her back. And she's got to go and basically lay her eggs and he'll fertilise them. So they have to travel through the forest, up this waterfall and into this little kind of pool in a cave. And that's where she lays her eggs. That was interesting. I mean, that was the first really interesting part of the episode, I think. Then we go to Borneo. And in Borneo, of course, we see orangutans. So again, we spend quite a bit of time with a female orangutan. She's basically trying to court males. It's very rare to see a sequence where the female's trying to court a male. It's usually the other way around. And that is a bit of a misconception in the animal kingdom. Females also try to attract mates as well. We see her trying to attract a mate, her managing to get one, her pregnant, her with her young. It was interesting. Again, I feel like I'd seen orangutans before, and that behaviour was interesting. But again, I was like, okay, yeah, I'm probably not going to remember it, ages down the line. Also in Borneo, we see Bornean elephants. They're basically just Asian elephants, but they're a lot smaller, probably as a result of island dwarfism. And we see them travelling through the water. You do feel the threat of the current a bit more than you would with larger elephants. I think because they are smaller, you do feel like there are a greater number of threats towards them. And we spend quite a lot of time following them through a palm oil plantation. It was interesting showing them take down the electric fence. I was already like, yeah, that's going to do nothing. I mean, that electric fence didn't look particularly well maintained. But even a heavy-duty electric fence isn't going to do much against an elephant, to be honest. And much like the earlier sequence featuring elephants, where I kind of thought there was going to be some conflict and there wasn't, it's kind of similar to that. A lot of the farmers tend to leave the remnants around for them to eat. So that was interesting. Again, I didn't know about that. And then we see the Titan arum, which is the largest flower in the world. That was really cool. I did like that. And I think we'd seen this in Private Life of Plants way back in the 90s. But it was good to see this filmed in HD, and again, it was great. The shots of the interior of the plant were amazing. The beetles getting trapped, then gathering the pollen were really good. All the shots of that was great. I thought that was a very interesting sequence. Again, well, it was nothing I didn't know already. It was something that was cool to see in HD. Then we go to Iraq, which isn't a place where you expect to see forests. But lo and behold, they're here. And it was interesting. We saw a lot of animals in there. We saw hyenas, we see wild boar, wolves. There's a lot of stuff in there, which is quite cool. I feel like it's a forest that's basically been unexplored. Certainly hasn't featured in these kind of programs before. But the main feature here is the Persian leopard. So this is something I heard was going to be in this episode, and I was really looking forward to it, and it didn't disappoint. It was just camera trap footage of the leopards, but to be perfectly honest, because they're so rare, that's kind of all I was expecting. It was interesting seeing leopards, especially the females, because they didn't actually know females were present in the area until recently, and we see a female with two cubs. That was really good. That whole sequence was really good. It kind of reminded me of the better snow leopard sequences, where it just kind of felt like a really intimate view of their lives. It did a very good job of presenting how isolated their lives are and how they could go ages without seeing another leopard. Really interesting. Something I haven't talked about in the series up to this point is the music. It's been pretty good at using instruments that relate to the area they're filming things in. Like when it's filmed in Japan, it feels Japanese. In India, it feels Indian. In China, it feels Chinese. It does help to transport you to the locations they're filming in. And then we see hornets. So we see these yellow-legged hornets in Taiwan. So hornets are almost always the bad guys. Not so much here. We do get a very intimate look at their lives. I think that's quite cool. We focus on their larvae quite a bit. And then we see them hunting bees. We actually see hornets catching bees on the wing. That's interesting. I didn't know they did that. It kind of makes sense, though. I mean, it would stand to reason they don't just invade the nests and pluck them out when they could just grab them when they're flying past. That was interesting. And we also see them being attacked by a honey buzzard. So again, you kind of felt sympathy for the hornet, and you really see how much damage these honey buzzards can do to their nests. I mean, it completely destroyed the colony, but there was one queen left, so there's some hope for the future. That was really interesting. Again, that was something I wasn't expecting to be a highlight, but I actually really enjoyed that. We end with pandas. I mean, the pandas are always going to be a nice way to end. We talk about how these pandas are basically getting re-released. Pandas have been kept in captivity by the Chinese government for quite a while now, so it's very rare to see an actual properly wild panda, but it looks like these ones are getting there. And we see this one cub just try to climb a tree, and it's kind of funny. It's a weird way to end because it is a funny sequence, but it is quite nice, and we get a wee montage at the end of all the different things we've seen already, and it's kind of nice. And in the diaries, it's all about the people filming the leopards. It just showed you them setting the camera traps out and see what they'd find. We get a bit more footage of the male leopard, that was interesting. But yeah, that sequence was interesting, I thought it was quite cool. So yeah, this episode is alright, I think. The highlights for me were definitely the leopards, the hornets as well I quite liked. I also liked the frog. I mean, again, there was nothing in here I didn't like, but there was a lot in here I kind of felt like was okay. What did you think of it? Did you think it was pretty good? Did you like it more than me? Let me know in the comments below. I'll be doing the next episode next week, which I believe is the cities episode, so that'll be interesting. Yeah, feel free to like, comment and subscribe as ever, or don't if you don't want to. And I'll see you next week, and goodbye.